How's it going, fellow blasphemers? I appreciate your patronage. I've got another video wherein I talk about metal, about the destruction of Christ. I fucking hate Christians, in case you didn't know. So a couple videos ago, I was doing From the Vaults, playing some nasty, grim black metal, and it fucking struck a chord with me super hard, and I kind of knew this would happen, since I had been listening to so much death metal, and like nasty black metal wasn't really hitting right. It just kind of waited for the perfect album to go on or come into my lap or whatever, and I would fall back in love with some of this stuff again. And it happened because of the Ungodly split that I played in that video. So since then, I've been deeply embroiled in putting together a mixtape. So there's this Instagram account that I've been kind of following, checking out. I see a lot of friends taking part in this, and I really wanted to take a part in it, and I finally decided to pull the trigger on it. So if you want to give it a follow, it's I'll put the link down below. It's Mega Metal Mixtape Exchange on Instagram, and what it is somebody who's just putting together this kind of like Secret Santa sort of deal where you get randomly hooked up with a person, and you send some total stranger a mixtape, and you get one from a total stranger. So it's just this, put all the names in a bowl, mix them up, and pull them out, and randomly pair people together. It's cool as fuck. I've never gotten one before. I've never sent one before. And honestly, the tape craze has kind of was a little kitschy to me. But anyways, I just decided, fuck it, I want to do it. I'm in the mood for giving at the end of the year. I think it's really important to look for opportunities to give. It's just something that's made a lot of big changes in my life in the last few years. So I want to do something. I want to do a giveaway on this channel of some copies of this mixtape. So we're going to talk about what's on the mixtape. If you want a copy, shit, I should have planned this out before I started shooting this video. Go ahead and leave a comment down below saying that you want the mixtape. Maybe put in your comment, Mega Metal Mixtape Exchange. Please enter me in the contest. And I'm going to randomly select 5 of you, and I will send out a copy of my mixtape free of charge. Thank you for your patronage and whatnot. Now, what's on it? That Ungod track, which is on this Bazazaza split, which you can probably find copies of this. It's limited edition to 1,000 copies. Merciless Records put this out in 2001, I believe, and it's a reissue of Ungod's rehearsal demo from '92 and Bazazaza's Hellfire split from '92. German black metal, and I've had this in my collection for many years, maybe 15 years. By the way, we're listening to it in the background. We'll get into that more. But what struck me so much about this Ungod rehearsal demo is just how underproduced it was. It's not black metal that's using rawness or guitar tone or grimness in any way to oversell what it is. It's just a naked, bare bones recording of early 90s black metal, and it just has so much realism, so much fucking just might to it. It just hits so fucking good. So I just got to thinking, like, this came out in '92. This predates De Mysteriis Dom Satanis and A Blaze in the Northern Sky. Yet it sounds very second wave. It doesn't sound like Mayhem or Venom or anything like early. So there's this, I started like getting really fascinated by this interesting little pocket where it's like definitely second wave, not thrashy, not like evil thrash, not really South American. I was a little interested in like what the US and Europe were doing around this time, predating De Mysterious, Dum Satanas, and Dark Throne, etc. Now, a couple of these tracks on here are a little bit later era, but we'll get into that. And I'm gonna break down this mix track by track and show you the releases that I chose these from and why, etc., etc. But it's important that I tell you that it is all based on this Ungodly rehearsal, which is amazing. By the way, if you don't win a copy of the mixtape, you can still listen to a stream of my mix on my preferred streaming platform, which is 8 tracks. I'll put a link down below. You can listen to it that way. Otherwise, the only way you can listen to this is by being a close friend who I've already addressed a envelope to, or winning the contest. So you're not missing out. Don't worry. Anyways, the first track on it is the first track on this Ungod split, Silence in the Golden Halls of Endless Hope. These tracks were later recorded, like a year later, for their debut full-length of the Circle of the Seven Infernal Pacts, which I've also been going crazy about too. But there's just something so stripped down, so raw, but not in the way that you're used to thinking of raw black metal. It's just bare bones. There's just so little intent to it. It seems so incidental that this black metal band sounds so palatable in the moment. I cannot stress how obsessed I am with this. It's been in my collection for years, and it just hasn't really bowled me over so hard until now. And that is why sometimes I buy shit that I don't like until 10, 15 years later, and it just strikes a chord with me and it blows me away. And I love the fact that that can happen. So the second track that I picked out for this compilation is by Iltjarn, and this is from the Son of the North Star demo, released in, actually, I'm not so sure about this demo. I believe it was unreleased until Full Moon Productions, unauthorized, put this out on CD. Supposedly this was written between 92 and 94. And the track I picked is Kronet. I don't like Iltjarn as much as I used to. I used to listen to forest poetry a lot, and that had a lot to do with its just brazen, primitive, raw sound quality to it. But as far as being like listenable or musical in any way, I've gone back and listened to some of that stuff, and it didn't really do a whole lot for me. But I wanted to be sure to include Iltjarn because he is an important part of a lot of that early 90s black metal. So I picked the first track on here, Kronet. It is kind of riffy. It's just a really quick, short song, but it held up and stood out to me when I went back and kind of listened to a lot of the Iltjarn releases that I have in this certain specific context. So Iltjarn is great. Another thing that motivated me to do this is that I hear a lot of bands nowadays, or reviewers nowadays, saying like, this sounds like 90s black metal. And I feel like that's kind of getting thrown around lazily. If something seems to have sort of a Scandinavian sound to it and has keyboards, oh, it's Emperor worship or something like that. But I think it's important to not forget the nuances that are present and the differences between a lot of the bands that were important in the early days, not just the Dark Thrones and the Mayhems, but stuff that predates that and kind of all around that stuff. There were a lot more influential artists making amazing stuff that can get buried in the mix when you're just throwing around this 90s black metal kind of term. So I just wanted to put together this mix to make sure that some of this stuff is remembered in that context. I'll show you. So I put together this little J card kind of thing. Put this on Photoshop, found some cool old paintings, put this border together. I'm calling it Necromantic Full Moon Rituals. I love that cover. I love the way this turned out. I didn't expect to wind up liking it as much as I did, so I always like it too in mixes when they put the logos of the bands in there, so I went ahead and put the logos in. If I should have given myself a little bit more time to make this like just right. Found this cool like black metal font that I put on there. Then on the inside I put this little blurb explaining basically what I'm saying in this whole video, so we don't need to go into that. I made sure to credit the artists that I found on here, not like I got authorization from these ancient paintings or what have you, but I'm not using this for commercial use, so there you have it. And then, so I went to Copyworks and I ran off a couple copies of the original, and I crinkled it up and I fucked it up and I copied the copy of the copy and then did it the way you did it in the old school days, and I came up with this. So I'm really happy the way this was turned out, aside from the little fucking typo that I put on it. So that is cool. I'll try and put the graphic in the stream of it or whatever. Also, if you miss out, you miss out. It's fine. The third track on there is Manin's Not from Manes, or God, I forgot. The Radical Research podcast talked about this band the other day, and I think they had a different kind of pronunciation, but I can't remember what it was. Anyways, this track has always stood out to me because Zaster did a cover of it for the Destroyers in the Western Sky compilation back in like 2004 or 5 or something, and that really made me want to reach back and pay attention to these early Manes demos, which are kind of hard to find. So these are, actually I have the other one. This demo is called Nedai Stillheten, and the other demo is actually, I believe, called Manin's Not, but it doesn't have the track Manin's Not on it, which is fucking confusing. So those two demos were reissued by Hammerheart back in, I don't know, maybe in 2002 or 3, 1,000 copies each. But there's a third demo, and Kirk Productions reissued all 3 of those on a compilation called Svarte Skoger, and that you can still get copies of pretty readily. But Manes were a Norwegian band, and their demos eventually wound up comprising a full length, Under a Blood Red Moon, which came out in '93 on Hammerheart Records. But these demos are so much more primitive and vampiric sounding, and the atmosphere that they achieved on those demos is just unthinkably amazing. There's a little bit of like clumsy, accidental, I think, elements going into what created the sound, but there's also a little bit of intent to it. So I feel like it's just a perfect example of an amazing early Norwegian black metal demo. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this stuff, but it's worth pointing out how important this demo is. So Manin's Not, that track is amazing. Also check out Zaster's cover of it. It's fucking awesome. The next track on it, I gotta double check. I have been dubbing these fucking tapes non-stop for a really long time, and I'm getting pretty sick of it. The next track is actually on a release that I do not own a copy of. I want to try and track it down if I can find it, but it's pretty expensive. But it's by a band called Zemiel from Australia. There's their logo. And I don't know much about Zemiel. For some reason, I've never really gotten into them. But it was through the process of looking up and just kind of researching stuff for this mix that I decided to look into Zemiel, and it is fucking awesome. It's from the track, from the 7-inch called Sleeping Under Tartarus. It's the title track, and this came out in '92. And even though it's an Australian band, it sounds pretty Greek to me. And it's, I don't know, it's very primitive. It's just got this real catchy riff over it. It's really simplistic and raw and stripped down, and then it has this clever little harmonic melody over the top of it. It's super grim and great. Sleeping Under Tartarus rules. So I was happy to discover a new band in the process of putting this together. Then I had to include none other than Demon Sea. So it may be a little known fact that Joined in Darkness was a demo that was actually recorded in '95, and that material for this was actually, I think, older than when it was recorded, like '93, '94 or so. There was just, Demon Sea's discography is so insanely confusing because it wasn't until after this release that he really started just putting together like, okay, this is an album. Because the previous releases were like a compilation of 2 or 3 demos. There was a double CD reissue of 4 demos, and it was just a fucking slurry of nightmares. But this, I talked about this a couple of videos ago, 4 underrated black metal classics, but I wanted to include it again on this because it is so primitive and amazing, and it's important to remember that the United States had a lot to do with the laying the foundations for grim, raw, cold black metal in the early 90s. So I included the track Dark Blessings, Impure Blessings, which is the first track after the intro on here. It just starts off the album so amazingly, and I love it. I've seen Demon Seed live 4 or 5 times, and they fucking rule. So then I got to thinking about Isengard, and I think a lot of people know Hustmirka, which is an amazing like Viking metal kind of thing. And the other release by Isengard is Vinterskugga, which is a compilation of demos that really run the gamut. One of them is really kind of like stoner rocky. There's even a song in here that reminds me of like the Doors. If you were going to die today. That track, can't remember what it's called, but you know the song. Anyways, there's some really, really black metal songs on here that I don't think really sound quite like Dark Throne. And I picked the track, I think it's this one here. Yeah, I can't pronounce this in English, but it's from the Vandreren demo in '93. And on Vinterskugga, it is track 3. So you're probably familiar with it, but I just thought it was kind of interesting to kind of use it in a different context and kind of bring to light how this is just some perfect black metal by Fenris of Dark Throne. But I don't think it quite sounds as much like Dark Throne as I think people assume. So it's worth revisiting Vinterskugga for sure. I know this has been reissued several times by Peaceville. I love that they are keeping some of these important releases in print. So that is the 5th track on the tape. And then the last track on the first side is by Mysticum. And they were active early on. And they were also very weird early on. It's important to note that they were doing something very different from the get-go. So they did a couple of demos, 92, 93. This compilation came out a couple of years ago on Peaceville, 2013, I believe. So you can get a compilation of all their demo material for pretty cheap. And it's pretty lovingly done. I really like how they put all the covers of all the demos on here. But the track that I chose is actually from the Ulver split, which I had never actually given that close of a listen to. And so I listened to, like, I definitely thought, like, ooh, Mysticum, without even having to look up anything to help me remember. And I listened to this demo and this demo, maybe even several of these. But the track that I wound up, I think, liking the most was from the Mysticum split. And it was, what's it called? Morning. Which I think there's another version of Morning released on, on this Winter Mass demo. Before they were called Mysticum, they were called Sabazios. But that track sounded a lot better when they did it as Mysticum, and I think they knew that when they released it as a split with Ulver. It's got this, they just used a drum machine in a totally different way than a lot of other bands wound up doing, and I think it's, you know, it's worth noting that they wanted the percussion or the rhythm section of the band to be inorganic and mechanical, and they wound up being influential to a lot of other bands for that reason. So then the second side, which we're listening to now, I went through all the tapes and I burned the first side, and then I'm going through all the tapes again and doing the second side of them. So 25 tapes, and I'm sending 20 out to friends and I'm giving 5 away. So that's 50 times I've had to sit here and push play and record on both of these motherfuckers. And also, I had to go out and buy a new tape deck to get this thing running. I hated my old tape deck, so I'm glad to have a nicer one that is working for me now. But another thing I didn't realize is that blank tapes are actually really hard to come by at thrift stores these days. And I kind of fucked up, and I made this mix is around 70 minutes long, so I had to find 90-minute tapes and not 60-minute tapes. So this has been a learning process. I don't know if I'm going to do the Mixtape exchange again soon. They do it every month, by the way, so, or just about every month. I think back in November they said, all right, you gotta get your demos sent off by January 1st. So that was like a 2-month window or so. Either way, wound up getting a new tape deck, so this has like been an expensive, and mailing these out to a bunch of people is going to be expensive. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. Anyways, the first track on here is actually kind of a curveball. I included a track by a band called K-Dotus out of Finland, and I don't know, I just kind of felt like being ornery with the whole idea because this band rules, and they're playing something that reminded me so much of really early, raw, primitive black metal. These guys are from Finland, and this EP came out in 2006. So 12 or 13 years later than the period that I'm referencing. Just wanted to throw one track in there and kind of say, like, these guys are keeping it real. This is my favorite material from these guys. This is the Twilight's Depths EP, and it came out on Werewolf Records, like I said, 2006. It's amazing. It's got tons of atmosphere to it, but it doesn't oversell itself any more than I want it to. And it's just got this perfect little minuscule harmony. I love it when the Finnish bands, they get into this blasting section where like the snare drum just kind of disappears in the hi-hat, and then there's this harmonic, there's this guitar harmony that sounds just a little bit different than the main riff. It just sucks you in, and it just sounds so fucking evil and good. So I included, I think, the first track after the intro. Maybe it's the second track, but it's called In the Stars. Amazing track. Next, I included something that I do not have on a physical format. It's really hard to get. So I wound up downloading it just because I really wanted to have something from Lambonic Art on it. This is a reissue of 2 demos from 95 and 96. Actually, it's Rehearsal 95 and 96. But the track I chose was an LP only, like, limited track from a promo that they sent to Nocturnal Art Productions back in 96 or 95 to get signed. Anyways, it's impossible to get copies of it. I looked, I tried, but I just really wanted to make sure that Lambonic Art was included on this because they also represent kind of a different format or a different take on this early primitive style by using those like orchestral keyboards, and it just sounds so amazing. That promotional demo I thought sounded a little bit better than these rehearsals, which are also killer. But I just kind of wanted to have something to show to reference that Lambonic Art track. But the track I chose was Beyond the Candles Burning, which I think you can also hear on, maybe not. There's another release that Kirk Productions did, which also did this, and it's called 96. These Kirk reissues are just so confusing with what's on them and what's not on this one, and the LP versus the CD version. I'm not going to get into it. You can look it up for yourself, but it's a killer track. So then next, I chose something that I also do not have a physical format. It is called Ritual. The band is called Ritual, and the track Blood Moon. I'm going to try and pick up this on LP because the original CD edition of it is pretty expensive because Wild Rags put it out. But it's from an album called The Summoning, and it's really, really great US black metal from Los Angeles. And the track Blood Moon was featured in a couple of my one of my videos a month or two ago, just as the intro track. I just felt like putting it on there. And I've always liked this Ritual album because it reminds me of like early Rotting Christ or Varathron. It sounds really Greek, to me. And it's just, again, it's super simplistic. The melodies are just really, really perfectly done. Just a well-executed band from Los Angeles, of all places. And I believe they're active again. Probably not as great as they were in the early days, but this was from 95. I think it's their first full length. I could have looked it up, but whatever. So the next thing I chose for the mix is from this, Sleep Time by Sacrilegium. You can still get dead stock copies of this. Wild Rags put this out in 94, 95. Dead stock copies of this you can still get from Dark Descent, and I recommend you do. Sacrilegium is a Polish black metal band, but this release is very primitive, and they went on to do a full length the next year called Weaker, which I talked about in a video or two ago. Weaker is great, but it sounds a lot more polished and well written and recorded. It's great, but it doesn't sound as raw and primitive as Sleep Time. Sleep Time reminds me, honestly, quite a bit of Under a Funeral Moon, but it has kind of a Polish kind of slant to it. It just fucking rules. It's a quick little EP, and I chose the track Empty Side of Soul from here, and that is the second track on the EP. This fucking rules. You can't go wrong with it. And actually, I learned by looking up stuff about Sacrilegium. Sacrilegium and Darkthrone were in talks to do a European tour back in the early 90s. And that would have been fucking amazing. The next track I chose was from Strid. Original copies of Strid stuff is impossible unless you are Elon Musk. Luckily, Kirk Productions put this out a couple of years ago, and it compiles their End of Life demo, as well as the 94 EP, and some pre-Strid material from a band called Malfeator around 91 and 92. I wasn't super familiar with this band until I got this release about 2 years ago, and I have been really enjoying it. It's actually playing right now. Drum Machine, Norwegian black metal from 93, but it's so grim and like kind of suicidal. It just fucking rules. I love the reverb on the vocals, but it's also very primitive and early and kind of youthful sounding. But I included it because I wanted something to sound. I wanted something that kind of sounded like dreadful and melancholic and evil, by using a little bit of reverb here and there. But it also kind of sounds clumsy because of the drum machine, but it just works perfectly well. The next one I do not have a copy of again, but I have one coming in the mail from Russia. If the guy doesn't fuck me over, please don't fuck me over. I paid a lot of money for this. Elastis from Switzerland, and this is from their debut, The Just Law, which came out in 92, and the track is called Black Wedding. I wasn't super familiar with Elastis. They wound up getting signed to Century Media and doing a bunch of stupid, mediocre albums. From what I can tell, I've listened to a little bit of some of them, and The Just Law fucking rules. It sounds a shitload like early Samael. So that's a plus if you're curious at all, but I really like the slow atmosphere going on here. It sounds kind of like a Black Doom track, honestly. It never picks up its pace. It just has this slow, plodding, just grim atmosphere to it. And I don't know if I would say necessarily that they were trying to be black metal. It just sounds really spacious and just heavy. But it has this just really fucking raw grimness to it. I don't know. If you're familiar with The Just Law by Elastis, let me know. Do you think that should be considered as like a black metal record, or is it just kind of like incidentally like dark, heavy doom? Is it worth even, mincing words? Anyways, the last track on it, this is Elastis right now. That riff just fucking rules. So, I hope you like this. The last track I chose on here was from Untamed Enslavement. I could not do this without including demo Right, this is not a demo. This is a full length. It's kind of toes the line between both. This is an original copy of Centuries of Sorrow. I absolutely worship at the altar of this release here. Effigy Records. You're not going to find this for under probably 80 bucks right now. But I wanted to include it because it's raw, it's primitive, it's from Norway. But it really toes the line. It shows a band trying to kind of escape death metal, I think. Their first demo or two was really kind of brutal, heavy, kind of almost grindish, but they were really trying to back away from that and become more melodic. And some of the tracks on here, which are on the demos, are really primitive and kind of chunky. Some of them have these really catchy melodic parts on them. So I chose my favorite track on it, Desecration of My Soul, which is the first one on it. It's super riffy and catchy, and it just kind of shows this amazing, youthful, vibrant band just playing their ass off, and it's so nasty and grim sounding. Centuries of Sorrow is the shit. You can get a reissue of it, which includes their demos on Vic Records. They did that a couple of years ago. They also did a double LP version of it, which is pretty expensive. But your best bet, if you want to get this on CD, on any format, is on CD. And you should be able to find it for maybe 20 bucks or so. So that is the rundown of Necromantic Full Moon Rituals, a Mega Metal Mixtape Exchange production. I hand numbered them. This one isn't done yet, but yeah. Kicking it old school, just to give away to you cool people. So leave a comment down below. I want a copy of this. Enter me in the drawing. I'll do a quick video where I do a random draw. If you're not subscribed yet, do it on my YouTube, but also through there. I just don't have near as many followers on Instagram as I do on YouTube, so I'm trying to push people that way too. I'm trying to bring people the masses of metal. So we'll see you next time, and thank you for watching. Thank you for entering my contest. Let's say today's the 15th. I'm gonna let you enter for the next 2 weeks, and I will pick a winner. I know I fucked this up last time, so I'm super sorry that I had a drawing that I fucked up and I called it early. Total accident. I was in a hurry. It's just my nature. But I'm gonna try and remember January 1st, New Year's Day, stop the drawing and pick 5 winners to send tapes to. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.